Breaking news! We have a good relationship with Korea. The raid at the Hyundai factory won't affect our relationship. So, we're gonna read some comments from the Korean news website. You dumb It's like a school bully beat the shit out of the victim and shouting after we have a good friendship. They really say they have some power, so he lift us, drop us, beat us, now suing us. They don't care about how hurt and betrayed we feel. They think of us as something to be used for. I'm worried, angry, and my pride is hurt even though I have nothing to do with it. I wonder how the family must feel. All the company should pull out the investment from America. The Americans who enters Korea with a tourist visa and teaching English, we should chain them up. Only if he was issuing the work visa as promised. He's talking nonsense. There's no other low-class thug like him. He's ripping off the whole world except he's frozen when it comes to China or Russia. World's #1 disliked person. Cancel all investment and return home immediately. It seems like playing devil is fun for him. Those American imperialist, racist, far-right demons need to be eradicated. Dog is barking. It seems like they're playing games. Boycott the tariff negotiations. It'll be better to use that money to cover the losses and stay out of it. The US who elected such a person as a president, or Korea who elected our own president, are the same. The only answer is withdrawal. They need to feel the fire dropping on their feet to finally come to their senses. They do politics like business, and they dream of being a dictatorship. He's the worst monster to have appeared on Earth in the 21st century. He may be even worse than Hitler. Unbelievable shit talker. You can't trust what he says. There will be no more investment in the US. They will even drastically reduce what they already have in there. They should apologize to the American voters because now the whole world know they are scammers. So yeah, these are some of the reactions from Korean netizens. Anyway, Korean government is sending their own plane to take all of the Korean nationals safely home. And they use the highest respected tone to talk about the 300 people that are detained. So you can already tell how serious they're taking this. And all the companies beside Hyundai now is announcing that there will be no more business trip to America for a while. I'll update more after Wednesday. I feel like there will be more news after everyone returns home. So follow for more.
That lady who got up on here and admitted that she's the one who allegedly called ICE on the Hyundai EV plant in Georgia and is also grossly mispronouncing it, who thinks she's some sort of hero / savior for doing this. Her name is Tori Branham. She is the Republican candidate for Georgia's 12th congressional district. Yes, you heard that right. She is the Republican candidate for the 12th congressional district in Georgia. But she is not the only one who called ICE. The local residents in that area also called ICE. Now, we can't fix stupidity. And this country has had a literacy problem, actually an education crisis, for a very long time. But if Tori and the local residents had done their research a little bit better, they could read. They would have known that this Hyundai plant wasn't going to be operational. It wasn't going to be functional. It wasn't going to be up and running until 2026. And you yourself, Tori, said that it was a construction site. Yes. On top of that, Hyundai had planned on bringing 8,500 jobs to the area, to the local economy. They planned on bringing 8,500 jobs, which is 8,500 opportunities in rural Georgia. Okay? I don't know if people just don't know how this works, if Tori knows how this works, if local residents don't know how this works, but international businesses, when they come here to build their plant, their business, they usually bring their own people. They usually bring their own people. So yes, it would make sense to bring South Korean engineers to help build this plant. It would make sense to bring their own nationals who are skilled and qualified to come here and train local residents and Americans to do the jobs if they're qualified to do it. And let's be real here. Like, some of these local residents are probably not going to be qualified to do a lot of these jobs. Some of these jobs will require higher degrees. And I hate to be the person, but Usually in rural Georgia, the rural South in general, high school is the highest degree that a lot of those local residents have. That's not a knock. That's just the truth. So some of you may not be qualified for some of the jobs that they're going to offer. Also, this would have brought so much opportunity and boosted so much economy into that local rural area of Georgia. 8,500 jobs is a lot. It would have helped local residents. It would have helped the area. It would have helped businesses. It would help strengthen like the community as well. And y'all just ruined it. Y'all just ruined it. Hyundai has halted all plans. I don't know if they're coming. They're probably not coming back. And Tori somehow thinks that she's this hero / savior, that she saved these people. Whatever helps her sleep at night, spewing the BS narrative that she thinks will make her seem like a saint, but somehow blaming this on Biden. Give me a break. If I was a constituent in the 12th Congressional District of Georgia, I would think long and hard about whether or not this is somebody you want representing you as a constituent.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're faring well where you are. And if you ain't faring well, please fare well where you are. Yes. Yesterday I did a video about the Hyundai situation. It was about this Hyundai factory in Georgia, where a white woman, she's actually on TikTok, this woman, where she reported the workers of this company that they are working in that company illegally, right? So I have some figures which is now corrected. Yesterday was about 475, 500, but it has been confirmed that it is 450 Korean workers who are arrested and detained. Yes, so right now they are waiting to be deported back to their country, South Korea, right? And you see, Koreans did not take this lightly, right? The Korean government actually reacted. They gave their perspective. They are really not happy about this, right? So I want us to listen to the Korean government. Let us listen to the Korean people. And then we shall also have a deep critical analysis by the end. Let's dive in.
Here's how Korea is reacting to the ICE raids at the Hyundai battery plant in Georgia.
We need construction to cease immediately.
And this raid is the largest single-site operation that DHS has conducted in history. Of the over 450 people arrested right now, around 300 of them are Korean nationals. And this has come as quite a shock to South Korea right now, because Koreans are usually not the target of ICE raids. A Korean newspaper even had this cartoon right here where they are depicting Trump as a sort of a bully. It starts off by saying that the US was begging Korea for more investments, and now they're arresting hundreds of South Koreans on a business trip. Literally just last month, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung met with President Trump, and they reaffirmed their alliance as well as business relationships. The US has been pressuring South Korea to invest billions of dollars into the American industry, and they were ramping up this pressure in the past few months. Korea recently agreed to a $350 billion investment into the American economy. And part of that investment was this Hyundai LG factory that was set to open next year. This facility was going to be Georgia's biggest industrial investment in the state's history, and it was supposed to help boost the state's economy. Officials are saying that a lot of these employees were actually South Korean nationals there on a temporary visa for a business trip who have been sent to help finish building electric car battery factories. First of all, South Korea's foreign ministry came out immediately to say that they are expressing concern and regret over Washington's decision to do this, and that this will send a chilling effect to the US in terms of business. I mean, President Trump has vowed to arrest the worst of the worst criminals with ICE raids. So I think Korea is shocked that this happened at one of their biggest factories in the US. I mean, the US is coming out and saying that they did this raid because they think the employees are there illegally or have overstayed their visas. And investigations are still currently ongoing. Now, LG is ordering all of its employees that are on business trips in the US to immediately return to Korea, and they're going to reconsider sending anyone else on business trips to the US right now.
Did you know you can pay $5 billion just to get humiliated? That's exactly what happened to the Hyundai and LG battery factory in Georgia. By the way, it's not Hyundai, it's Hyundai. Over 500 people were taken, and more than 300 people were Korean national. When the president of South Korea met Trump last month, I couldn't even finish the video.
저의 관여로 남북 관계가 잘 개선되기 쉽지 않은 상태인데 실제로 이 문제를 풀 수 있는 유일한 인물이 트럼프 대통령이십니다.
It was so cringe, the way he was kissing and the translator fighting for his life.
So resolving this issue through my engagement is not an easy thing. And the only person that can make progress on this issue is you, Mr. President.
Apparently, they discussed South Korea's future investment in the US, including energy, mineral, infrastructure. But just in 11 days, South Korea media is saying 뒤통수 맞았다, meaning they got stabbed in the back. US media claims that a lot of them overstayed their visa. But the investigation isn't over, so we'll find out more. Korean netizens are furious. Koreans are all about pride. Having our own people being mass detained, that's not gonna sit well with them for the next maybe 10 years. Some are saying shut down the factory, pull out the investment, bring our people back home immediately. And others are saying they believe Korea is being disrespected because we're a smaller country. And some think US is pushing out Korean workers because they want to replace that with US workers, even though the innovation is from Korea. And surprisingly, a lot of them are saying that Trump is trying to punish Korea for attending this Chinese military parade, marking the 80th anniversary ending World War II. And apparently it was anti-US event. Anyway, this is far from over. It'll be interesting to see if this will change the relationship between South Korea and the US. We'll find out.
There is a critical detail that is being left out of every American news outlet that's reporting on this. And that's the fact that the part of the plant that got raided the other day is the part of the plant that makes batteries for electric vehicles, which isn't even operational yet, not till early 2026. And that might not seem like an important detail to many people, but it leaves the story open to so much interpretation of people thinking things like this, that this South Korean company just came to America and instead of hiring American workers, that they just illegally brought people via like shipping containers or something. And a lot of people don't know this because I never talk about it here, but at my last corporate job at Red Bull, one of my many responsibilities was expansions, which meant that anytime Red Bull wanted to expand, whether their headquarters or warehouse and operations, I was a part of the team that made that happen. And just like any corporate expansion, like let's say a new McDonald's pops up, when McDonald's comes into town, they don't just hire brand new people from that town and just go, well, I hope they know what they're doing and I hope it's up to McDonald's standards. No, they take their most tenured, seniored, and experienced people within McDonald's and they send them to that brand new location to not only set up the location, make sure all the machinery and everything they need is there, but then they hire and train all the brand new employees for months. And that's exactly what they were doing. There were so many Korean people there at that plant, not because they were taking away American jobs, because again, there is literally no job to be done because they're not even in production yet. They're literally there setting up the factories and getting ready to start hiring people and training them. And this was confirmed in Korea, by the way. This is from Korean news outlets where they stated that 47 people were from LG and 250 people were for the suppliers for that plant, which means that they were literally all there setting up the logistics for this plant when they become operational next year. In addition, when a country like South Korea is like, hey US, we want to invest $350 billion into your economy by forcing Korean companies to set up industries in the United States, and the United States is like, yeah, we'll accept your money. But then our government spends all year literally being a circus, cutting departments that are essential to realizing that $350 billion investment by allowing people from South Korea to be able to come and make sure that it's set up, which again is literally what happened, which is literally why there were people like engineers that were there who had to get creative doing things like using the visa waiver program, which allows them to legally be in the United States for up to 90 days to either do business or tourism, to again attend business meetings and be there for less than 2 weeks, but then they end up getting detained anyway? And Hyundai, I know I'm nobody to you, even though you're about to enter into a $5 billion joint venture with my family's company, SK. I think you should take those 15,000 plus jobs that you're about to create in Georgia and take it somewhere. I can't remember the name of the country, but I swear there's a country that is about to have an influx of people living there who are going.
This is how Korea is reacting to the ICE raids at the Hyundai LG battery plant in Georgia. Here's the thing, this was my first job in US. Here I worked as an interpreter and I cannot believe this is happening at the place where I started my career. The US was literally begging Korea for more investment and now they are arresting hundreds of South Korean business travelers who came here to help build American infrastructure. Korea is not used to being targeted like this, so I'm very annoying as Korean. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments.
Here we go again with the race baiting. So all the liberals are claiming that the Hyundai raid was because it's about Asian hate. They're posting stupid crap like this, asking for BTS to take a stance because amongst the 400 plus arrests are Koreans. Posting dumb stuff like this on X saying Trump's administration is turning law enforcement into a political spectacle. The mass raid at the Hyundai battery site, 475 detained mostly South Korean nationals in what official calls the largest single site HSI operation, risk wrecking U.S.-Korea ties, spooking investors, punishing vulnerable workers, while dozens of corporate questions remain unanswered. So you're just going to ignore the facts, which that's what liberals do. Even during the construction of this site, there have been multiple reports of how unsafe it is.
Our WTOC Investigates team first told you that there have been more than 53 EMS calls to the Hyundai megasite in Bryan County since April of 2023. 14 of those calls were for traumatic injuries. We've spoken to several people that work at the plant that say there is not enough concern for safety on the site. WTOC Investigates. Shay Schrader live in the studio now. And Shay, that story doesn't end there.
Yes, Mike, the workers that I've spoken with say that they feared for their safety day in and day out on the Hyundai site. So why not just walk away? More than half a dozen people that have ties to the site tell me that many of the workers feel trapped and exploited because of their immigration status.
See, just more proof that the liberals, they don't care about people. They care about exploiting people. And don't tell me that that's not the case, because guess which president was the president that decided to broker this deal? That's right, President Joe Biden. He made an announcement on the White House website on October 25th in 2022, declaring the statement by President Joe Biden on Hyundai's investment in Georgia. And it was written, "My economic agenda passed by the Democrats in Congress to rebuild our manufacturing and infrastructure here at home countries to pay off for the American people, this time in Georgia." This plant was announced during my trip to the Republic of Korea in May, and I'm excited the groundbreaking is happening months ahead of schedule. Hyundai's commitment is to invest more than $5 billion and create more than 8,000 jobs. So it sounds like our former Democratic president decided to team up with South Korea, create a factory claiming that it was going to release 8,000 jobs to the American people, but yet they hired a bunch of illegals and exploited them because of their status.
Like being run over by a forklift, a conveyor belt crush, and a fatal fall. Bryan County and OSHA records show a tough reality for workers at the Hyundai megasite. Fernando Garcia and Kevin Souza worked on the site in the fall of 2023. The two, who have been working in construction for 28 and 26 years respectively, say they've never been on a job site so unsafe.
Did you ever consider, because of the safety of the site, walking away from the job, or did you ever see other people walk away?
A lot of other people walked away, but truthfully, if we would have walked away, I mean, then, who's going to, get pictures of all this and get recordings?
Yeah, liberals, that's what you're fighting for. You're pissed off at the Trump administration for doing a raid on Hyundai. You're claiming that this was racism towards Asian people because a bunch of Koreans were picked up. Illegals, by the way. Meanwhile, that report was done last year under the Biden administration. Stupid narratives like this, none of the immigration rated employees were Hyundai employees. This is a construction site for an up-and-coming Hyundai battery plant. The employees were employed by general contractors and subcontractors. Those two guys that are part of subcontracting and contracting work for the plant, they're the ones talking about how illegal immigrants are there. And they even talk about how there was a rumor spread back in 2023 that ICE was coming, and they have footage of all the employees running. Your narrative is complete false lie, which is exactly what you liberals do.
Like this one, a conversation Garcia captured between himself and a foreman on the site, explaining that you can get hired even if you're undocumented.
No importa, ¿verdad? Con papeles, sin papeles, ¿verdad? Pero no le diga así directamente. No. Ni le diga que yo le dije. No. Tranquilo, pero no importa, ¿verdad? Yo le digo que lo llame.
It doesn't matter. But Sousa says it does, saying workers' undocumented status on the site is what keeps them there despite all the safety risks. The bigger concern is deportation.
We were up in a lift one day, and I guess there was a supposed ICE raid. Well, we're looking down out the lift, and I mean, people are just bolting across the field, hopping the fence on 16, running towards the parking lot. And we're like, what in the world is going on? And then somebody said ICE is on site, and it actually shut a lot of the job down for 2 days because all the workers fled.
The panic of workers at the plant may have just been the result of a rumor.
So how are you guys going to argue this fact that the news has been covering this for quite some time? And that specific story and article was published December of 2024 when President Biden was still our president. So yeah, this is not a racist thing where they're targeting Koreans. This is totally corruption that the Biden administration partnered up with the Korean official to fund supposedly this bill, create a dangerous environment, exploit illegals because of their status, and put them in dangerous work environment and probably don't even pay them that well. Remind me again, which party is all about human compassion? Because it doesn't sound like the Democrats. Oh yeah, but you guys failed to mention any of this because you don't fact check. What you do is you just read headlines. With your race baiting of Asian hate bullshit, we all know it's a lie. You guys parroting this just shows you how
Why are so many Asian Americans so silent right now? That's because they didn't vote. Yes, they didn't vote because they didn't like Kamala from their internal misogyny or internal racism and felt indifferent enough about the orange man so that they thought that a no vote was going to the orange man. So the reason why they're not upset right now is because they voted for this. That's why. And that's not me excusing their behavior. I am a disabled person. I was advocating for Kamala before the election, so I had the chance to talk to a lot of my friends. They're not my friends anymore, but people in my life about how this election was going to affect me and people like me. And if they cared about me, why they should vote for Kamala. And they still didn't care. They couldn't care less because at the end of the day, it was all about taxes. Yeah, their tax break. The problem is Asians that have a level of wealth feel this closeness to white people because white people were the only ones that had that level of wealth for so long that they feel like they're getting a chance to be part of the white club, but they're not. And if I could give an insight into maybe why Asians are like this, it's because a lot of our parents and like even my generation as a millennial, we have seen our mother countries very impoverished. Like for me, I'm Korean, so I know South Korea's history. Like South Korea was fully bankrupt in the 80s and saw their first economic boom in the 2000s. It hasn't been that long, and they're in like the top 20 GDP in the world now. That level of wealth growth, normal citizens see that and think, oh my God, if I'm just smart enough and if I invest correctly, I can also get there. And if you look at South Korea, it's an oligarchy. That country is ran by like 3 families, and the main one is the Samsung family. And they have so many scandals. They have done some bad stuff, and the country just lets them get away with it. And if you look at the election turnout, it shows that South Koreans are starting to wake up to the state of like, oh, we're an oligarchy. But Korean Americans, look at the past of Korea, see that you can still succeed, feel like there's a privilege of being in America, utilize the model minority method, and then try to enter the 1%. They think that they could break into the 1%. Wake up. You're not. You're not white enough. You will never be white enough. They will never accept you.
The Trump administration authorized a massive ICE raid on the Hyundai plant in Georgia. 475 workers were detained. Most of them were South Korean citizens. The White House claimed that ICE was just enforcing the law. If you're here for the facts, tap like and follow. This wasn't a normal operation. It was dubbed Operation Low Voltage. It was the largest single-site immigration enforcement in Homeland Security history. ICE agents showed up with armored vehicles and a helicopter circling the $4.3 billion construction site. They detained 475 people, shackling them at the wrists, waist, and ankles before loading them onto a bus. The Trump administration says these workers were illegal aliens. Here's some details. Over 300 were South Korean nationals, here as subcontractors for Hyundai and LG. ICE stated that they were working on a short-term visitor visa or under the visa waiver program, which doesn't authorize employment. Trump's team says it's about protecting American jobs. Here's the thing though, this raid happened just weeks after Donald Trump held a friendly summit with the South Korea's president to celebrate economic ties. South Korea, a critical ally, was blindsided. Their government convened an emergency meeting and called the US release a video showing their citizens in shackles regrettable. And honestly, this should be a massive wake-up call for any Asian American who thinks they're white adjacent or a model minority status will protect them. You are delusional. The Trump administration doesn't give a fuck. Their vision of America is narrow. If you are not white and from a specific background, you are a target. They don't care if you're an engineer from an allied nation building a US factory. They saw an opportunity to send a message about who they believe truly belongs here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share.
Everyone needs to know that ICE is disappearing Bhutanese refugees at a really scary pace right now. They're suddenly snatching people up in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, and New York and deporting them to Bhutan, the very country that ethnically cleansed their community. We're talking about Nepali-speaking Bhutanese people who immigrated to America as lawful refugees after being persecuted by the Bhutanese government in the 80s and 90s. Back then, the Bhutanese regime arbitrarily stripped them of their citizenship and labeled them illegal immigrants, even though most had lived there for many generations. Well over 100,000 Nepali-speaking Bhutanese people were denied their rights, torn from their homes, and forced out of the country. Many ended up in 7 different refugee camps in Nepal where conditions were inhumane. And when the US offered humanitarian relief, thousands resettled here and got green cards, with many eventually becoming American citizens.
Originally from Bhutan, Jahal spent 20 years in a Nepal refugee camp where he said food was limited and shelter was poor. But Jahal isn't suffering anymore. On Tuesday, he joined 68 others at Castleton University in gaining his American citizenship.
They consider America their forever home, but in just the past few weeks, over 60 Bhutanese refugees have been detained by ICE. From what we last heard, roughly 20 refugees have been flown to India and then forced across the border into Bhutan, where they face persecution and expulsion. Eventually, all 20 were rejected by Bhutan and forced through India into Nepal. We know at least 4 people are now in police custody in Nepal. All others are missing, leaving their families terrified and desperate for answers.
We don't know if they are safe, we don't know if they died, we don't know if, what happened. How is it happening? I mean, we came here legally.
These refugees are now stateless again, caught between governments unwilling to offer refuge. Bhutan disowned them, Nepal is taking them into custody, and the US, which once offered safety and freedom, is turning its back. There's still a lot we don't know because ICE isn't being transparent, but we do know most of the targeted refugees have green cards and have lived in America for many, many years. Some have had run-ins with the law but served their time, and ICE says they're being targeted for this reason. But let's be clear, regardless of someone's record, it's still not an excuse to disappear them and put them in dangerous situations without adequate due process and without any regard for their safety or human rights. Historically, it has not been normal for the US to deport immigrants to countries that will persecute them or deny their existence. That's because, up until now, the US has agreed that doing so goes against our laws and our fundamental human rights. But Trump and his loyalists are doing it anyway, because they want to get rid of immigrants of color as quickly as possible without due process. And they don't care one bit about anyone's safety or humanity. If we don't act now, countless more families will be torn apart, lives will be at risk and our shared rights will erode even further. That's why we need you to contact your representative and tell them to demand Trump stop these deportations and immediately release and return the Bhutanese refugees. We're also working with Asian Refugees United, an organization that's actively helping impacted Bhutanese refugees and their families. If you want to donate to support their work, go to our link in bio.
I am born and raised in Los Angeles. I also go to UCLA. However, my mom was born in South Korea and immigrated to the States like 30 years ago. The other night, she was actually telling me how she was kind of scared about maybe getting deported back to South Korea, and how she canceled all her summer plans of going to South Korea because she was scared that she wouldn't be able to come back to the States. And hearing that, I told her like, oh, that's not gonna happen. Like, but then seeing it get worse and worse, and seeing all these families like being like torn apart and stuff, I start to realize like, oh, like, I don't know, this could happen, which is really, really scary. I mean, I'm not really too educated about the situation we're in right now. But yeah, we're in a very, very scary situation. I just want to send my best wishes to all the families out there that are being directly affected. But yeah, be safe out there.
You don't need to fit into America. America was never built for you to fit in. And honestly, it will never fully accept you trying to fit in either. A lot of Chinese students come here with a test-taking mindset. We treat America like it's an exam. We study it, analyze it, try to become the perfect answer. We change our names, speak broken English on purpose, even act like we're second-gen Asian American, when we're not. But here's the truth. America doesn't reward people who blend in. It respects people who build their own space. Someone who leads and not follow. Look at the other groups, Irish, Italians, Druze, Russians, Indians. They don't try to erase the culture to fit in. They build strong communities, support each other, protect their identity, and claim their power. That's why they have their own neighborhoods, their own resources, and even political influence. Meanwhile, so many Chinese students and scholars try to wash themselves, erase the culture, speak only English, act like they belong here more than they actually do. But in the end, they still get called chick on the street. Why? Because they never learn to build their own space. They only learn to assimilate into someone else's. Here's what people don't tell you. In America, even if you're weak, you have to act strong. Fake it till you make it is real. This place respects confidence, even if it's fake. If you walk in soft-spoken, overly humble, always apologizing, people won't think you're kind. They'll think you're easy to ignore. So no, don't try to find your place. Make your place. Don't wait for permission. Don't beg to be included. Create your own room, build your own rules, and let others fit into your world. That's how you survive and thrive here.
By now you have all heard about the events that happened in Georgia yesterday, and I see a lot of people talking about the US and South Korean alliance. But there are some very key foundational facts that are missing from these conversations. So let's talk about it. The first question that we need to ask ourselves is, would a North and South Korea even exist if the United States hadn't been so heavily involved in South Korea's affairs? Now, the history books will say that without the United States and the UN, without their support, South Korea would have succumbed to communist North Korea. But we need to look at the magnitude of that help and security. First, I need you to guess how many US military bases there have been and still are in South Korea. That number is over 70. So during the Korean War, the United States and the Korean government legalized prostitution around these military bases, and those areas were known as camp towns. In the 1960s alone, camp towns produced 25% of Korea's GDP. And what do you get when you have sex? Babies. A large population of mixed-race babies at that. Now again, for those of you who don't know, Korea has had foundational Confucius views. And so the shame that comes around single motherhood and mixed-race babies at that time, it's gotten better, but at that time helped start what is known today as the international adoption industry. Now, don't get me wrong, international adoption or intercountry adoption existed before the Korean War. However, South Korea is the world's largest child exporter, and the United States is the world's largest child importer. So Korea began exporting these children to westernized countries. And mostly, thanks to the Holts, Korean babies were shipped to the United States, much like myself. But that's a story for another day. So let's recap. When you look at the foundation of the South Korean and United States alliance, you have to realize that it is set in military security, economic support, and the human, emotional, democratic values of children and family. And as a result, all of this cooperation has created basically a dependency on the United States. And as an example of that dependent relationship, the Korean government has taken responsibility and apologized for its created human trafficking and child exporting. But has the United States? Will they ever? Probably not.
The South Korean government does not trust United States law enforcement agencies to not infringe upon the rights of their citizens, and in response are deploying diplomats from both Washington, D.C. and the Atlanta consulate to the Hyundai Motors factory outside of Savannah, Georgia, where yesterday DHS conducted their largest ever enforcement raid against a company when they arrested 475 individuals, the majority of them from South Korea. The problem with this is that almost all of them were authorized to be here, either through contractors, subcontractors, and all of them had been verified through the E-Verify system. Now, DHS says that they received the tip from local residents who turned in Hyundai Motors and contractors for illegal hiring practices and discriminations after they were refused jobs in favor of South Koreans. I can tell you exactly where these DHS tips came from. Disgruntled, racist white men in the South. Having been raised in the South and currently living in Georgia, I promise you that somebody who thought they were going to be employed by Hyundai Motors.
Just watch that lady from Georgia proudly talk about how she called ICE on those poor Korean employees, the Hyundai plant. And it's Hyundai, not Hyundai. And what gets me the most is how she's comparing their work environment to modern day slavery. I don't think she understands South Korea is a developed country. To get in a top company like Hyundai and Samsung, you have to be highly educated. It's very competitive out there. These are corporate environments. It's just crazy to see people be so proud and open about viewing color in that way, and that these are the same people that are running for leadership. This is why it's important to be cultured and travel and talk to people that look different than you. Also why it irks me when people try and tell me that racism doesn't really exist. It's there, people just hide it.
On Thursday, September 4th in local time, the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement conducted a raid at the construction site of our company's battery plant in the state of Georgia, during which many of our nationals were detained. The economic activities of our companies investing in the United States and the interests of our citizens must not be unduly violated during the course of US law enforcement. In Seoul, we also conveyed our concerns and regrets through the US Embassy today, urging special attention to ensure that the legitimate rights and interests of our citizens are not violated.
The biggest crock of shit I've heard so far since the Hyundai plant in Elabella, Georgia was raided was that the Koreans and the illegals will do jobs that Americans can't do or won't do. Well, that's bullshit, because there were union workers out there who weld, who are safety certified, who are skilled, who those people for decades have built this country. The union and laborers built this country, but they don't want to pay skilled American laborers that are safety certified because it costs them too much. They want to hire illegal labor and people on H-1B visas from foreign countries because they save money. Yet they give them millions of dollars in tax cuts for allegedly creating jobs for Georgians that never happens. But they shit all over our skilled laborers because they would have to pay them more, even though they are skilled and safety certified. They would rather pay a $150,000 OSHA lawsuit like they did with the guy that died on the forklift out there. That place was one big accident waiting to happen. So the contractors, the corporations will hire illegal labor over Americans, not because Americans won't do the job. It's because the Americans are skilled, safety certified, and they know their worth. So they would rather just pay these OSHA lawsuits when people die. It's just ridiculous.
So after carefully listening to these videos, this is just a sign, right? This is a sign of envy. It is a sign of racism, because racism is just envy. There's nothing else. White supremacy is envy. You see, you can't hate someone when you don't have a reason to hate them, right? It might be a good reason to you, a bad reason to them. A real reason then follows. You see, something might be good or bad. That one can be subjective, but there is always a real reason. A real reason is always objective, right? It can never be subjective. So once we do something, we do it in two ways. We do it in the subjective sense, or we do it in the objective sense, which brings out two outcomes. The outcomes might be we do it for a good reason from our perspective, and then we do it from a real reason, from the world's perspective, right? So if I try and look at it from the good perspective, Americans, from this woman's perspective, she feels like America is being invaded, right? This is the philosophy of Donald Trump. Donald Trump's philosophy is making America great again. But, you know, making America great again involves, or rather, will require a series of such kind of activities, a series of invasions, a series of police brutality, a series of deportations, massive ones, and not so humane, because families are being broken, right? So making America great again is a sense of racism, is a sense of oppression. It is a sense of trying to squeeze out those whom you think are inferior, right? Because it's not only about the South Koreans. This has happened to black people with African origin, leave alone the foundational black Americans. We have black people with black origins who are being deported back to Africa. We've had Chinese, we've seen the Latinas, we've seen the Hispanics, we've seen the other people as well, but whom we don't see as frequent as possible, or as required, because according to Trump, there's a meter. It goes this way. Whom we don't see being deported as much are the white people. The white people are, you don't hear what people have been deported to Europe. You don't hear that, but you hear the Asians, the Indians, the Chinese, the Africans, the Latinas, the Hispanics, the Mexicans. Those are all people that you hear. So according to the woman, America is being, is being invaded by people who don't belong there. That is the woman's perspective. Remember, it is the subjective perspective. It is the good perspective according to that woman, right? So according to this line of the subjective sense, I'm here to ask a question to that woman, because she's right here on TikTok, right there. This video is not destined for TikTok. She's on TikTok and she's bragging about what she did. She's bragging and she's okay with it. She's even doing she's happy and even explaining, right? And people are suffering. People have really gone through hardship for this, right? So we've seen the subjective sense, which is the good reason according to the woman. Now let's look at the objective side, the objective perspective, the real reason why she did what she did. The real reason why she did what she did is she feels like she's incompetent. She feels like her behaviors, the behavior of her country or her people, their incompetency has been revealed, right? Because if I look back right now, these people are smelling and they are sensing what we call incompetency. Because if I look at it right now, if that woman felt like they were competent enough, she wouldn't have had no problem with people coming and working for them. But because she feels like I can't do what they do. These people are working so hard. These people are doing this. You see, working hard is a virtue, and working as a foreigner in a country requires a lot of virtue, right? Even I myself, I go to America, I start working there. It will be required of me to represent good virtues, right? Not vices, virtues, right? And so she feels like she lacks the virtues. These people are very hardworking. They do this and that, right? Another real reason is what we call white supremacy. White supremacy is the driving force that has made her look at things from that perspective, right? That is a white supremacy. If she didn't have white supremacy, she would have seen these people as equals. Because I believe she's really the first white woman to see those Koreans working there, right? It's not like these people are working under a cave or under a hole. No, they weren't doing that. They were just working publicly and doing their own things. So white supremacy is a thing, incompetency is another thing. That's the real reason why she did that. Another real reason, she's just jealous and she's just having a very bad heart, right? But so who is going to suffer? Leave alone the woman and the situation. Let's look at who is going to suffer right now. The person who is going to suffer the most right now is the ordinary American citizen. Because this company is a battery, the battery manufacturing company, right? And when we have such a massive company, and today's technology, we have EVs coming out, we have solar panels, we have devices that use batteries, right? Even sometimes in your household, you might want to use batteries, right? Even in America, I know they have a huge use for those batteries. So who is going to suffer here? Is it the Korean who was kicked out, or the American who was who needs to use the tools over there, the tools produced from the company, or the one who is employed on this company? Because when the company shuts off, who really benefits? You see, the owners might run a small disadvantage because Hyundai is headquartered in South Korea, not America. That's the thing. America is just one of its branches, but not the main. That's another thing people should understand, right? So this woman, she's making it hard even for her own self, right? She's too good for Trump, for her own self, right? You see, you don't have to be always too good to people at the expense of your own self, right? She's trying to show that image that, hey, Mr. Trump, I'm trying to work hard and I'm trying to create an environment that you desire of America. No, that's not how it's done. Now this is going to fracture the relationship between the South Koreans and the Americans. The government might ignore, but the citizens will keep this into their heart and they'll keep reminding themselves what America did to their parents. Because those were people's parents. Those were people's brothers. Those were people's sisters. Those were people's couples, right? Spouses, husband, wife. Those people who are being kicked and running like that. Imagine your father running like that. I saw those videos, you know. A big man is running like, hey, like he's seen a ghost. You see, Trump is really terrifying Americans. Trump is really making it hard, you know. I myself, I thought Trump would do better. But I'm really, really disappointed by what I see right now. Yes. So that's all. That's my take. That's what I can share with you right now upon listening to this video. I know you may have your own perspectives Please be sure to share your perspectives on the comment section. I'd really love to hear what you have to say. Yes. And also, if you enjoy my videos, be sure to subscribe. It helps me bring more valuable content to you. Yeah. And again, another question I want to ask you is, who really hurt the most here? Is it Trump? Is it Hyundai? Or is it the American citizens? People should think before they act. You see, look before you leap is a saying, is a very old saying. And now it's very much applicable than it was before. Sometimes actions may have consequences that may not seem right now, but will have long-term effects, maybe long after we are gone. See you in the next one. Remember to share your thoughts on the comment section, and see you in the next one again.